Welcome to Cognigy Sessions, our Tech in Now series from conversational AI experts for experts. Every episode will give you deep insights into a new Cognigy AI topic. Today's episode is about endpoint transformers. If you're new to Cognigy AI, there's a good chance you've never come across that feature. But for many advanced users, endpoint transformers are a mission-critical capability that makes Cognigy AI stand out as an enterprise-grade platform. This episode will show you the typical applications for endpoint transformers, how to use endpoint transformers as part of your conversational AI, and finally, how to build your own endpoint transformers for your individual use cases. This recording is also available in our Help Center. Please follow the link below to access additional resources and to go to our community for questions and discussions. Also, please be invited to start your own free trial if you're not already a Cognigy AI user. And with that, let's start today's session.
Hi everyone, this is Chris from Cognigy, and in this webinar, I'm going to show you how to use endpoint transformers. Now, what exactly are they? Endpoint transformers represent a powerful developer tool that enables you to customize any of our existing Cognigy endpoints. It does so by hooking into the user input and the Cognigy output. Transformers use TypeScript with extra functions. These are custom HTTP requests and the session storage. More on these later on. The endpoint transformers also have an execution timeout of 5 seconds, which is customizable on our dedicated environments. Now, if we take a look at our default endpoint behavior, you can see that the user input goes straight from the channel the user is currently using to the platform, and the platform output goes straight back to the user channel. Once we bring the endpoint transformers into play, you can see that the user input first goes through the input transformer and only then into the platform, and the platform output first goes through the output transformer and only afterwards to the user channel. Now, what exactly is this good for? So, plenty of use cases actually. The most common one is that you want to use Cognigy with a channel that Cognigy does not provide an endpoint by default. This might, for example, be a new messenger app. And expanding upon that idea, basically any custom integrations that you want to do. Speaking from experience, modifying an endpoint is much faster than adapting the internal API, going through all the change requests and all of that. And also, you don't usually have influence over external systems. So the endpoint transformer allows you to handle events from third-party systems that are not in your control. Another very common use case is the auto-translation. Feel free to check out our multi-language webinar for more information on that. And the endpoint transformers can, of course, be used to modify all user inputs and all platform outputs, and of course, much more. Now, when we talk about custom integrations, you usually want to have your input transformer or your output transformer or both talk to third-party APIs or your internal logging API. That can also be the case. For this, you usually need some way to send an HTTP request, which our custom HTTP request function gives you the capability to. Now, how to use it? Basically, the HTTP request in the endpoint transformers is a function with a single configuration object that has the exact same format as the options object from the request npm module. There are some limitations by default on that function as well. The first one is that you can only use it once per transformer execution. And the second one is that you are not allowed to send an HTTP request to other endpoints. Both of these restrictions are in place to prevent self-DDoSing on a SaaS environment, and are of course customizable on dedicated environments. You can turn off these limitations if you're in your on-prem scenario. The second function that we added is the session storage. And as the name implies, the session storage is a storage object that is available in all transformer functions. The getSessionStorage function uses the user ID and the session ID as parameters, and it returns a promise which resolves with this session storage object. This has the implication that you should not mutate within the session storage directly. Instead, you should mutate locally and then reassign to the session storage. On the right, there is a small code example where you can see we define a temporary array. We push some elements into it, and only after modifying the array, we store it in the session storage. This is the recommended behavior. To give you a little bit more of a graphic overview, basically the session storage is the tool to allow the input and the output transformers to talk to each other. And with that, let's head over to Cognigy and see it in action. As you can see, we are now in the Cognigy user interface in the Chris Techinar agent I've previously created for this video. Now, before we head to the endpoint section, let's first create a flow that will help us understand the transformers. As you can see, we have our default main flow straight from the agent creation, and let's change it so that the hello world output only happens on the first time, and afterwards we will repeat the user input. Let's use a Cognigy token here. Save node. All right, wonderful. Now if I say hi and hi again, the second time, it repeats back the user input. If we now head over to the endpoint section and we have our little web chat here, let's actually open it and see that the current status is pretty much the same as the interaction panel. Now, if we head into the endpoint settings, you can find a transformer functions area here. If we expand that, you can actually find the transformer code here and a few toggles above to configure it. Now, in our documentation, you will find more details on which transformer is relevant for which endpoint, and also like more details on what the transformers are doing exactly. Let's just worry about the input and the output transformer for this Techinar right now. All right, so I've now enabled both the input and the output transformer. However, I have not yet actually changed anything in here. This is basically the default configuration, and it will now still behave as if I haven't enabled them. Let me refresh the page here. So if I now say hi, you can see hello world, hi again, and it will simply repeat hi again, exactly the same as previously. Now let's actually do some changes here. So let's have the input that we received be encased by some brackets, for example. So let's actually copy the payload to text here. Let's extract it. And now it should encase everything of the understood input. Or not even the understood input, the input that got sent to the endpoint. Now let's also change the output, and let's simply append a little from Cognigy to the end. For this, we can modify the processed output of text. and simply let's add a little from Cognigy to the end. Let's save this. And yeah, let's actually try it out in the transformer itself. Let's refresh the page so that we get the first hello world. If you now say hi, you can see that the hello world output has received a minus from Cognigy in the end. And if I now say hi again, you can see that the hi again is enclosed in the round brackets, and the minus from Cognigy got added to the end. So we now have modified the input and output transformer. But if we head back to the platform and into the interaction panel, you will see that actually the behavior in the interaction panel is still the same. The endpoint transformers are currently only affecting the web chat. The flow itself hasn't changed a single bit. As you can see, everything is still the same here. Now that we've added the transformers, let's actually do something a little bit more usable with the input transformer. So if I now talk to this flow in Spanish, for example, you can see it repeats the Spanish input straight back to me. However, we can actually translate this in the input transformer so that the English flow is still able to use English input. For this, let's head back over to our endpoint. And what we are going to do is we will add an HTTP request to the Azure Cognitive Translate API. And for this, let's first define the result object. Let's define the options object. I've already prepared the options object beforehand to comply with the Cognitive Services Translator API. You can see it now requires a subscription key, which we currently do not have inside the transformer code. So let's add this here at the top. This makes it easily configurable later on. And let's leave the subscription key empty for now. So, all right. Now, of course, we also need to actually try to send the HTTP request. Let's fill the result object with the awaited HTTP request result. Options. Let's also console log this result. HTTP result. And let's append the stringified version of the result to actually make it readable in the console log. And of course, we need to catch any error messages. So for now, let's just console.error log the error message. The console.error basically logs in a red color. All right. So let's save it. Let's head back to our web chat and refresh the page here to create a new session. So if I now say hi again, you can see that for the user right now, nothing has changed yet. And if I also write in Spanish, it currently still doesn't do anything instead of the just repeating back to me the user input. Now, if we head over to the logging section, you will see that we now have actually logged 2 errors. So you can see here, the request is not authorized because credentials are missing or invalid. Of course, we need to add our subscription key to the endpoint transformer. So let me do that really quickly here. And let's display a black bar so that you cannot see my subscription key. And let me update it really quickly here. All right, let's save it. Let's scroll a bit down so that you cannot see it. All right, and now if we head back to the web chat, behavior still will be the same to the user. So hi again, and press, and you can see that, you know, it's still not translating. However, if we look at the logging section, you can see, oh, no error messages. And if we turn on the debug messages and scroll the way down, you can see now we actually log the HTTP result. And the object we receive back has a basically has a detected language object inside an array and then translation objects. And we can, of course, use this now in our transformer. This is the information that we needed to finalize it. So let's actually initialize the result in case of an error so that we can still use it and not have the transformer crash on an error regarding the HTTP request, which could be rather bad, because then the user does not get anything. Translations, and this was an array with a text inside, and the text, we will simply set it this to be the same as the payload.txt. All right, let's add a semicolon at the end. So now we initialized our result object, and what we now need to do is to actually use it to append something to the text. So currently we have the original user input, and after the HTTP request, what we can do is we can simply say, all right, that we append some more stuff. So let's add a line break here, and then we say translated is the result at the position 0 dot translations at the position 0 dot text. The API allows you to actually send multiple separate strings at once, so this is why we receive an array, and this is also why we need to do a little bit of this. All right, so yeah, let's save it, and now the user should actually see a different behavior. So if we now say hi, and now if we say hi again, you will see that we have both the original and the translated. And if I now say me llamo Chris, you can see now the original is the Spanish version and the translated is actually the English one. If we now head back to our flow, as previously seen, you can see, you know, the flow hasn't changed so far. The interaction panel behavior is also still the same, as the interaction panel is basically its own little endpoint. And all of the translation and the input and output transformation is only happening for the web chat right now. Now, instead of coding your own transformer, you can, of course, also simply use our existing transformer samples on our GitHub repository. So let me show you how you can find it. If we say GitHub, you can either go directly to Cognigy via the URL, or if you Google GitHub Cognigy, you find our GitHub repository quite quickly. Now, if we head into that and check out the transformer samples repository, you can see here we have an endpoint folder and also an NLU connector folder. For this Tekina right now, the endpoint folder is relevant. And let's take our Telegram transformer, which is already hidden in the custom endpoint transformer folder here. Let's go to the transformer TS. And now what you do is basically you simply copy the whole thing. All right. Head back over to Cognigy, and now you create your suitable endpoint. As you can see here, if we scroll the way up, this is a webhook transformer. So let's now also create a webhook here. Let's call it webhook. It's also pointed to the main flow. There we go. All right. So now what you do is basically you go into the transformer function, select everything, and replace it with what we just received from the GitHub repository. Now you can see it has the handle input transformer and the handle output transformer inside. You have plenty of interfaces which are according to the Telegram API specification. So you don't need to worry about that at all, which is great. And the HTTP request and all of that is already configurable via the bot token and the base API. So now let's actually save that already. We also need to enable them. And again, I need to fill out the token. And let me bring back the black box for this. All right. So this is now entered. Let me scroll down a bit. Save it. I can disable the box. And now if we head over to Telegram and do all the configurations, I can show you how it is working. All right, we are now in Telegram, and if I now say hi and hi again, you can see it is using our existing flow. Wonderful. Yeah, this is how you use our existing GitHub repository and the plenty of transformers that we already have in there. Of course, you can feel free to modify them. But yeah, that's it about the GitHub stuff. Now there is one more feature which I want to show you, which is the Cognigy CLI. It allows you to edit your endpoint transformers in VS Code on your PC and then push it to Cognigy. If we head to the GitHub Cognigy CLI, you will find that you'll find it directly via Google. And in this repository, you have everything that you need to set it up. I will not go over all of the details right now. Basically, you clone the repository, then you can use Node to run and build the package. And afterwards, let me show you what it looks like. Let's first create an additional endpoint. And let's call it the VS Code web chat. Points to the main flow. And as you can see, the transformer functions are the default functions. No changes have been made so far. So now let's enable the input and the output transformer again, save it, and we will not make any other change in Cognigy right now. I've already prepared the CLI and set it up. So now let's clone the Cognigy repository. Yes. It will now download all of the resources. Wonderful. Now if I open up VS Code, you can see here now, let me maximize this. We now have here this agent repository, and we can see our VS Code web chat. If we go to the transformer TS, you can see we now have the socket transformer. And here, for example, I can now say let's text equals changed in VS Code. Let's put a semicolon in the end. Let's edit this, save it. Now we only still have it locally. So what we now do is, instead of clone, we will put a restore. And this will now push all of our resources to Cognigy. And now it's run through. So let's check it out. Let's head over to our endpoints. As you can see, everything has been changed a few seconds ago. If I now go into the VS Code web chat transformer and refresh the page, might still have cached it. You will now see that it has the let text changed in VS Code.
Thank you very much for watching our session on endpoint transformers. Please don't forget to visit our Cognigy AI Help Center under support.cognigy.com for additional resources and information, and a link to our community where you can ask questions or leave us feedback for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.